Good afternoon, Facebook community and YouTube community. This is Jennifer Noreen. I'm here again with Mark Melsness, who is the designated broker and property manager at Spinnaker Property Management. I know you guys are used to seeing our faces. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I am awesome.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So I know we want to, as always, kind of talk about what's going on with business because COVID has been kind of an interesting season for everyone. For the most part, these have all been pretty good news stories. I know there's been some challenges, but can you talk a little bit about what's going on with your business? And then we're going to talk about rent assistance programs today as well. So what's going on with Spinnaker? How are things going?
I'd say, as far as you can compare it to status quo, COVID has adjusted everything that we do. And since March, and our adjustments and the few that come in addition to that as new things pop up, it is still a super strong market. I was just going over some numbers today. We have less than 1% of notices to vacate at the end of September, right?
Less than 1%?
Less than 1%. And typically we're like 5 to 10% on average in a normal market. So we've seen that consistently when people give notice go down, and now we've at our lowest. We've got 8 people that gave us notice to move out of the homes that we manage. And I know that talking to other people, that's a consistent experience with other management companies. So again, our inventory to bring to the market for available new rental homes is much less, while still experiencing a high demand for product right now. So it's just compounding.
Yeah. So you have a lower than normal vacate rate, which just makes sense because everyone's kind of hunkering down right now, getting through all this we're going through. And so you have limited availability of new homes because you don't have anybody moving out, and there's just not enough homes for rent and for sale in this South Sound region. So kind of same story, just more intensified as this season continues, and our normal dips and increases and all of that just aren't happening. It's just kind of this weird season. So
Jennifer, I want to just jump in there too. What we're also doing right now at Spinnaker is we actually went through, because we haven't been renewing leases with people that are in their homes as their leases expire. They've just been rolling over to a month to month because we just weren't sure what's going on. And we just did a review of all of our expired leases, or people that are now in month to month status because of expired leases. And we identified a huge percentage of current occupants that are in a month to month status that they necessarily wouldn't have experienced a rent increase. So we're reaching out to them as the law allows us to renew them on an existing circumstances, like the same house, the same use, at the same rental rate. And now they get to lock down into another 12-month period if that's what they want to do, the renter, which gives them peace of mind and our owner clients peace of mind.
Yeah. So, and sometimes does the rent increase when they do that, or the rent stabilizes, right, for a period of time, right?
Well, right now the law won't allow us or any of the landlords to increase the rents. So what that does is there's a lot of renters out there wondering what's going to happen, and we're reaching out to a whole bunch of them saying, hey, listen, you're already at market. How would you like to keep the rent the same and sign up for another 12 months knowing what that rate is going to be? And we haven't had an opportunity to reach out to all the renters yet because we have to talk to owners first. So we're going to see when we talk next on how the owners responded to that and how the renters responded to that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like finding the things that you can change and improve for residents during this interesting season. There are things you can do. So sounds good. And it depends on the circumstance whether or not you'd be interested in a month to month or in going into a lease. Kind of depends on what's going on. But so tell me a little bit about what percentage of people are struggling to pay their rent, and what are some solutions for that?
So with Spinnaker right now, we have 566 doors homes that we manage, right? Some of them are single family, some of them are multifamily, duplexes.
566.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And of those, we have 30 homes that are in more than 1 month's rent delinquent, and a portion of them are on payment plans. Like, we've sat down with them, worked out something that is reasonable for their income stream as it is right now, that gets us into a relationship that sets them up to give them, the renters, peace of mind.
Sure.
And then there are the remainders who are not in communication or who are not paying. And so we're at right around 30 out of the 566. And here's the crazy number. It's over $110,000 in delinquency for past due rent, not including September rent. This is August and back to March. $110,000 over 30 different homes.
Is that higher than normal for you?
Oh, it's a significant number because, one of the challenges that we'll talk about a little bit here later is that some of the renters that are in these out of communication and not paying the rent, there are all kinds of conversations about what has them stopping being in communication with rent. Embarrassment, don't know what to do, challenges with language barriers, or even internet barriers. They're not comfortable, familiar. And then there's just some who just are confused with the message coming out from the government, and that's on TV and the radios, of that they have this grace to not, and it's, they have the grace to take care of themselves and their families, but they're still rent due, and it will be due. And
yeah, this is kind of creating stress. Yeah, it's kind of creating stress, right? Because you still at some point got to catch it up. Yeah, and it's kind of like exchanging one problem for another in some ways, unless you're unemployed and you just truly can't pay it, and then it is giving you some grace that you need at the time. But I think that would be stressful. So what are some of the things and there are so many resources in the community, and I know that we're planning to do a go live with Holly, your operations manager, next week about the details of these programs. When I asked her for information, I was totally blown away at how many there were. It was like two pages of organizations in our area. So I think our area is very generous in our giving to people that are struggling to pay rent. There are a lot of options. So which ones are the ones you wanted to highlight today?
Yeah, so what's really great is we, Spinnaker, had an opportunity to jump on a call with some other housing providers, along with the number of different agencies that are out there that aren't necessarily funding agencies, but they are the advocates that bridge the gap between the occupants or the renters who need the money and getting them in communication and contact with the agencies that have the money. And it's pro bono, legal assistance program, mediators, county representatives, city representatives. These are all public agencies who don't necessarily, they don't provide the funding, but what they're doing is they're talking to us, the housing providers, and the agencies, that the renters that are in that small percent that haven't paid just don't, for whatever reason, take any action. And when we're the landlord reaching out to them, it's just more of the same conversation, kind of like when your parents tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Right?
And if someone else reaches out to you and points you in the right direction, it's less stressful.
Exactly.
Or whatever. Yeah.
So we've set up, and we've started the conversation and are setting up a relationship with these facilitators, which is really, and some of them are mediators, to work with us and the renter to gather the data that they need to point them and connect them with the right funding agencies to get them the help and the finances that they need. And now it becomes, we're working in your best interest, not the landlord's best interest. And here's the resources that you can get. And because what's coming is this result if you don't. And it's a whole nother type of conversation that's not coming from us, the landlords. It's actually coming from an advocate.
Well, will they have to move? Will the law allow you to force vacate units if they don't get on a payment plan or take action? Or
It's possible.
are you frozen? Okay, so you're not frozen. Like, let's say COVID resolves itself in 6 months and you have these outstanding balances. Is the law going to allow you to organize the payback of that money? Or is that...
It's tough to say because there's some language with the governor's proclamation that asks us, the landlords, to perform with some very specific processes with specific documents using very specific words. And we're doing that on a regular basis, monthly, for those who are more than 1 month behind.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, there's languages and words you can't use. So it's really important to know what you can say and what you can't say, and to work with the agencies that have, like we have been, that provide the money. And now we're going to compound that value to the occupants, the renters, by not only getting them in touch with the resources, but the facilitators or the mediators that can advocate for them into those contacts for the resources. So it just really does make a huge difference with how Spinnaker is working with those agencies and the funding agencies.
Yeah.
Because and like you said, Jennifer, is, you know, we all know that on October 15th is when the current proclamation regulations are expire, and there's a huge swell of all sides knowing that that's going to get extended once again. And so that will move things out, which will in some cases compound the already existing huge debt that's happening or piling up on some of these renters. And eventually it will expire, and the owners and the renters will really be really stressed to try to cover that gap. And it will most likely, in many cases, result in eviction.
Wow. So Governor Inslee's actions on the 15th will have a big consequence. And why are you anticipating it to be extended? Is that because
we're not seeing any recovery on the individual, you know, citizen, not just renters, but just the individual in our communities that are getting back to work, that are starting to build a cash flow through income, or maybe even hopefully, you know, depleted reserves, savings deposits, or savings accounts. So once we start seeing that is when the governor and even us, you know, most people will start to say, okay, now we can start lifting these restrictions because people have these resources on their own now. But that's just not happening right now. It's just not.
Right. Yep. So, wow. Well, hoping for the best for you. It sounds like this is a little bit more stressful than it has been in the past. This sounds like a different conversation to me.
It's compounding, and that's, I think, what's getting stressful. And, you know, the people that are not in communication and not paying, there's a pain point that has them, whatever it is, not do that. And it's a very small, I mean, a microscopic percentage of people who are doing it maliciously, the renters. It really is. And the others have some really serious concerns on, like, how do I deal with this? And they just don't know how.
Right.
And these agencies will be, you know, that Spinnaker gets to work with, and a few other management companies who are aware of it and are willing to do that.
Yeah.
We're going to bring that value to all parties.
So what is the action point then? So obviously communication is key here. So if you are a renter and you're struggling, or you're newly struggling, to communicate with your landlord and let them know what's going on, and to work out something with them directly if you can. Otherwise, it sounds like you will be contacted by these agencies that will put you in touch with assistance. Either way, you're going to be put in touch with assistance. There's not very much limitation to assistance in our state. I mean, I just can't believe how many options people have. So if you're not paying your rent and it's out of fear or what do I do, really not a necessary place to be. You can reach out either to Mark or your own landlord or these agencies. So what are some of the names of the agencies if I wanted help with rent today? What are a few of those places?
Well, that's where you have to talk to Holly. She works with all of them directly on a daily, if not weekly basis.
Yeah.
And we have, like you said, that sheet that's, you know, a small font, right? and it's 2 pages long. There's like
it's
30
actually,
agencies out there.
I know, it's crazy. Actually, I'm remembering that information is on your website. We got it up on your site a couple weeks ago. So I would check spinnakerpm.com. I believe it's resources. Look for the word resources. That will give you a list of things. And if you've got questions about how to work through those things, you can definitely call Mark or Holly directly at the number here, tickering away at the bottom of our screen right now, 253-830. 5160. I know we're fancy. We have a ticker. Well, thanks for the conversation. I wish it was better news, but it sounds like it's just communication's never going to hurt anybody, just to get out there what the real situation is and what can be done. So I think in Washington State, we're lucky. We just have a state that is for giving to consumers and obviously to residents. And I think there's help available. I don't think that's true of every state. So not a limit of resources. So thanks for the conversation, Mark, and we'll be checking back with you in a couple weeks. Obviously, we'll be updating that resources section on the site. If you're listening here and you know of resources that you don't see on the site, please comment what those might be. And if you have questions for Mark, please put those in the comments as well. So until next time, thank you, Mark. Good to see you, and take care.
Awesome.